So this is the first episode of Out from the Shadows, Let's Talk Migraine. And the idea behind this whole series was just so that we could put a patient face on the different issues that we face as people who have headache disorders, such as migraine, cluster headaches, traumatic brain injury, and kind of explore some of the questions that are really pertinent to us. I wanted to start with chronic pain because so many people who have migraine or another headache disorder also have chronic pain. Now, you can have migraine without having chronic pain. It is a chronic illness, but it is not necessarily a chronic pain condition. You can also have chronic pain, obviously, without having migraine. But so many of us have comorbid conditions that also cause pain. And so I thought this would be a great place to start. One of the things I like to refer to chronic pain as is a pain syndrome. And I've heard that from many other people. So there are a lot of different pain syndromes. I'm going to do this from memory, so hopefully I'm not going to miss out any of the major ones, but they include things like fibromyalgia, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, any kind of spinal degeneration, stenosis, bone spurs, peripheral neuropathy, tendinopathy, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, osteoarthritis. I'm going to stop there because the list just goes on, but of course it also includes migraine, cluster headaches, and other headache disorders as well. We call these pain syndromes because they all cause some form of pain. And I like to see pain syndromes as one big happy family. So what I mean by that is that when you get one, they tend to say, hey, come on in. We are very welcoming. Come and join us. And before you know it, you have another pain syndrome and then another. And what happens with a lot of us is that we have a ton of these pain syndromes in our life, and we're trying to deal with them. That can be really challenging, and it increases the complexity of treating the pain syndromes. It increases the chance of being misdiagnosed, of being undertreated, and also of isolation. So we're going to talk about that as well. Obviously, there is no quick fix to chronic pain. We live in a fix-it society, and we would like to think that there is a quick fix to chronic pain, but unfortunately, there is not. There are actually some pretty staggering statistics. I'm just going to talk about the ones for the United States of America. So 20% of the adult USA population lives with chronic pain of some kind or other. That is 1 in 5 people. To put it in a numerical term, that is 50 million people. Worse than that is that 8% of the adult population of America lives with what is called high impact chronic pain. That means chronic pain that is severely impacting your ability to live life in one way or another. So to put that in forms of numbers, that is 20 million people. Not surprisingly, people with chronic pain are 3 to 4 times more likely to deal with depression and anxiety. Chronic pain patients are often overlooked, misdiagnosed, mistreated, and misunderstood by the health profession. Unfortunately, it affects everybody. So we're talking about men, women, people of all ages, even young children, all races, all cultures, all socioeconomic backgrounds and situations. It grows across the board. It does not discriminate who it impacts, and that is really sad. What is most sad is that chronic pain is so isolating, and yet the human-to-human connection, as I'm sure so many of you know, is really crucial in helping us manage it. So the chances are that if you have one of these syndromes, and I know that most people here today at least have migraine disease or cluster headaches, you've heard a lot of things such as, it's okay, but actually it's not okay, or it will get better. And yet for so many of us, it simply doesn't get better. And then there is, I'm here for you. But the sad thing is that with chronic pain and chronic illness, a lot of people don't understand, and so they tend to lose contact. Pain has a purpose. Well, I'm still looking for that purpose. I know that we can learn and we can grow through pain, but that's not why we actually have pain. And then there's my all-time favorite, you're never given more than you can handle. And I'm sure a lot of us realize that that is just not the whole story. And a lot of the time we feel like we have definitely been given more than we can handle. If you agree with that, just give me a thumbs up or give me a heart or something, and just let me know what you think about that as well. For a lot of people with chronic pain and headache disorders, our lives become an endless round of doctor's visits and medications and adverse side effects, and then treating those adverse side effects. We live in our beds, on our couches, in emergency rooms, in hospitals, and our life is not normal. So I tend to refer to people who don't have chronic pain or a headache disorder as the normals. That's something that people probably don't understand if you don't deal with one of these conditions. But to me, they live a normal life. I know their life isn't perfect, but they don't have to worry about going to a movie theater and being triggered by the lights or the sound or by the sense. They don't need to worry about going to a place of worship, such as a church or a synagogue, and again, being triggered by perfume or cologne or the lights or the sound, or just going out in heat. They don't have to even think about walking down a grocery aisle and what may actually trigger a flare-up or an attack. So we don't live a normal life. And besides that, a lot of the time we deal with stigma and discrimination, and that makes it really challenging. So that all sounds kind of negative. And I don't want this to be a really negative thing. I want it to be, what can we do when we live with chronic pain? What can we do when we live with migraine disease or cluster headache or any other kind of pain syndrome? How can we actually live our life? How can we thrive with these conditions that there is just no quick answer, or maybe no answer to at all? And so that's the question that I really want to deal with in these sessions. And we're going to go through a wide range of topics that hopefully are going to be of interest to everybody. Ultimately, we have about 1.5 years of topics actually planned. So I'm pretty excited about that. And we're going to be bringing in other migraine patient advocates to come and speak about that. And I'll share a little bit more about that at the end. So for me, all of the above actually became a driving force to make a difference. So I get asked a lot of the time by people, especially who have ongoing migraine, how do you do it? And the answer to that is not simple, but for me, I like to frame it as in I had become totally isolated. I had lost connection with just about everybody. I was living in my bed or on my couch when I wasn't at doctor's appointments. And besides the pain that really was not improving, emotionally, I was really struggling. And I know that some of you out there really struggle with that as well. You struggle with anxiety and depression and panic attacks and fear. And honestly, it wasn't a great life for me. And at some point, about 1.5 years ago, I sat back and said, wow, is this really my life? I can no longer work. I can't be there for my family the way that I want to be there for my family. I have more doctors than I ever thought was humanly possible. My list of diagnoses is just mind-blowing. So is this really how I want to live? And do I have another 30 or 40 years of this? And if so, how am I going to face tomorrow? And quite honestly, it was depressing. So what happened was, obviously, I discovered the online community, which is why I'm here today. And there are some really, really inspiring patient advocates on the online community, especially in Facebook. And what they did for me was they impacted my thinking. And my thinking became, it's time to find my voice. It's time to speak up. It's time to actually be outraged about the lack of research and the lack of treatment and the lack of hope that we have, and also the lack of awareness in society in general about chronic pain and other headache disorders that really impact our life. And the idea behind that is bringing it out of the shadows, because honestly, a lot of us live in the shadows and the conditions that we deal with are in the shadows. So by doing this series, we are bringing it out into the public. I hope that this will help some of you find your voice the same way that I am starting to find my voice. It will give you the courage to speak up and to tell people that you need help, or that you need accommodations, or that you are not able to work with fluorescent lighting, or that perfume or cologne makes you really sick and you're asking people to make a difference for you. And it's okay to ask for those things. We have choices. And then we're going to go on to question and answers. So if you have questions for me, you can start putting it in the comments section. And right now I'm going to go over 10 choices that we have as people who live with pain for our lives. We have a choice to find our voice and to advocate for ourselves with our doctors, especially moving from the old parental model where we're just told what to do, what to take, and when to take it, and more to a partnership model where we actually communicate with our doctors, they communicate with us, and we're able to work together for better outcomes. Number 2, we have a choice to learn as much as we can about our conditions. The sad fact is that up until recently, I used to go to my doctor and expect them to have all the answers. But there is so little teaching in medical school and even in residencies about pain syndromes, whether you're dealing with fibromyalgia or migraine, cluster headaches, or any of the other syndromes. So we have a choice to learn everything that we possibly can about the conditions that we live with and our options. We have a choice to be honest about our journey, and that's really scary. I have a hard time still being honest with some people, with a lot of people, about what I'm going through, how it impacts my life, and what I need from them in order to keep having a relationship with them. It's hard. It's really, really hard to be honest. We have a right to discover our basic rights. You can choose to do that. We do have basic rights in healthcare, with our friends and family, at school, both college and K through 12, in the workplace, in society in general. We can choose to speak up against stigma. We can choose to be kind to ourselves. I'm still working on that, and I know a lot of you are as well, but we can choose to live within our limits, to say no, to be in bed if we need to, and not feel guilty about it. And I'm speaking to myself here because it's really hard not to feel guilty when I'm in bed for a day or 2 days or 5 days or 2 weeks, and I'm looking at everything I'm missing, all the things I should do that I just can't do, all the times I'm missing with my husband, the things I'm missing with my children, the lack of being able to get together with my friends, the cancellations. It's really hard. We have a choice to embrace the successes. Sometimes it's really hard to look at the positive things in our life, to see the good things, to go for a walk when we are relatively pain-free, take a picture and enjoy the beauty of that, or whatever it is that is a success for you, something small, something that you can do, something that really makes a difference for you. We have a choice to learn from failures. So we have a choice to say, okay, I overdid it. Okay, I've been sick for 5 days. Today I feel great and I did way too much and crashed the next day. We can learn from that and learn to find boundaries. That's really hard. Number 9, we can model to our children what it is like to live in the face of the unfathomable and still have a life that somehow has value and purpose. We have a choice to do that or not to do that. And we have a choice to show ourselves and everyone around us that everyone, no matter how much pain they deal with, no matter how much disability they deal with, their lives have value and they have purpose. And that is a huge thing, to say we have value, we have purpose. And that's what I want to say to you today, is you have value, you have purpose, and it's okay to tell people about that. So now, I hope that's been helpful. Now we're going to go to some question times. I see a lot of people saying hi. And from Richard, he asked, if chronic migraine daily pain that just varies throughout the day, does chronic fatigue usually follow? So all I can tell you is that when I have several days of migraine that I just can't break, and by that it could mean I'm taking medication, I feel better for a few hours, and then I just get worse again. It's essentially all one migraine attack. I know that I always get very fatigued during it, and afterwards I also get very fatigued. So I think for a lot of people that is very common. It is sometimes referred to as the prodrome, the postdrome. Excuse me, prodrome is what happens before. So it's referred to as the postdrome. We have exhaustion, fatigue. We can have aching. It can still affect our vision. We can still have what we call brain fog. And that's part of the challenge about especially headache disorders, is that just because the pain is gone doesn't mean the other symptoms are gone as well. So I'm going to move on down. Hi, Linda from Georgia. And hi, Kimberly. So there's a lot of things here, so I'm just trying to scroll on down. So hi, April. So you're talking about depression and migraine and barometric pressure headaches. So part of the challenge of having any kind of chronic pain is that if you have chronic pain of any kind, the chances are you also struggle with anxiety and depression. Those can also be separate conditions that your doctor can diagnose you with, but the reality is that if you live with chronic pain of any kind, then it is likely also to cause depression and anxiety in your life. Part of that is anxiety about taking medications, going to see a doctor, how you're going to keep on going to work, how you're going to survive, all the things that you miss with your family. So part of that is normal anxiety, and part of it is we have a tendency to panic. So it could be that you have a comorbid condition. It could be just that living with pain is depressing and anxiety causing. And then when we're dealing with headache disorders, there's so little that is known about how that actually impacts our brain. And so we don't know if the migraine and headache disorders actually cause depression, anxiety, or if it's caused by the medication, or if it's some other complex thing as well. So I know that I tend to refer to day 3. That's actually going to be a topic on one of these talks. Is day 3 is really, really hard for me. And I know a lot of people, that means that by the time I hit day 3 of a severe migraine or a severe flare-up somewhere else in my body, then I tend to get very depressed and I deal with a lot of anxiety and fear. Is this ever going to stop? Is it ever going to break? So that we have so little control over what goes on with chronic pain. I know, especially for migraine, you mentioned barometric pressure headaches. So yes, there's so many things that can trigger it. We don't have any control over the weather, unfortunately. We have very little control over scents and cologne. I see that Christy made a comment here, perfume should be outlawed. I know that's a really radical comment to make, and some people may react against it. I tend to think along the same lines as well. I know people have free will, but the problem is there is a lot of toxins in perfume and cologne, and for people who have multiple chemical sensitivity or don't have that yet and just have migraine or asthma, then perfume and cologne, any kind of scent, can actually trigger it. Now, it may not only be synthetic perfume or synthetic scents. It could, for myself, I know that I'm also triggered sometimes by some flowers, some natural scents. So it could be anything, but certainly perfume is a huge trigger and is a major cause for isolation for people who deal with pain. So I'm seeing a couple of questions here and comments. So Marianne, how do you break from isolation when you're in pain all the time? That is really hard, and it's a great question. We're going to actually do a whole topic just on that because it is so important. How do you break out of isolation? So for me, all I can say is that it started by connecting online. I was really, really isolated from going out, even from seeing pretty much my family and my children. I had pretty much stopped going and worshiping anywhere. I was afraid to be exposed to especially cologne and perfume, which for me is my biggest trigger, but also humidity, heat, wind, and a whole load of other things that could also trigger me. So I got very isolated. My first answer was to get online and to start connecting with people, and that made a huge difference. I still remember the first time someone said to me, sweet hugs online when I'd had a particularly bad day, and I started crying. Now, a year and a half ago, I would not have gone online and said how much that impacted me, but the impact of someone actually being kind when I felt so isolated was enormous. I can't understate how big that was. So I really encourage you to be a part of the Migraine Meanderings group, to be a part of Chronic Migraine Awareness group, of Move Against Migraine, to get onto migraine.com, all these other amazing organizations, and connect with other people who really, really get it. I would say try to really make an effort to reach out to people. When people reach out to you, to respond. So now I have people all over the country who I can call and say, hey, I had a really bad day today, or I had a terrible experience with a doctor. And they say, I get it. I get it. Let's talk this through. Or if you don't want to talk it through, you can just cry on the phone. And that's okay. So that's one of the ways you get out of isolation. Another is being very creative about what you do. So I've discovered that I can go and worship. I can't go into the sanctuary where I worship, but I can sit outside where there is fresh air, as long as it's not too hot, it's not too humid, it's not too windy, it's not too cold. So there's a lot of qualifications there, but I can actually go there, and that means I can see people. And just seeing people makes me feel more normal and less isolated. The third thing I would say is that you can get involved in being an advocate. So wherever you go, you can go to a group. Maybe you can start a group. You can just talk to people about what is going on in your life, and that helps actually become less isolated. So that's no great answers. I know there are no great answers to this, but hopefully that gives you some ideas. Like I say, we're going to talk about that all the time. I know a lot of us are recluses, really. I describe myself as a hermit, and I've been a hermit for many, many years. And to a large extent, I still am. I kind of pop my head out and do things like this, or go speak online, or speak at a support group for migraine or chronic pain, and then I go back to bed for a week or 2 weeks. So I'm not really so different, but what I've discovered is that when I do that, emotionally it helps me. So physically I can pay for it, but emotionally it's really, really helpful. So let me see if you have any other questions here. I know we're getting to the end of the time. I want to keep this really short and sweet. I hope that's okay with all of you. We're going to do this once a month. Before I go on to the next question, which will probably be the last one, I just want to let you know that a lot of these I'm going to do with an awesome friend of mine. Her name is Margot Anderson. She is a social worker who specializes in working with people who have chronic pain and headache disorders, and in talking to them about things like resiliency, which is actually going to be our third topic here. So I'm going to be very excited to welcome her next time and the time after that to you, and I hope that you're all going to be here for her. She's an amazing patient advocate who I got to know in the past year, and she's just one example of how your life can change when you start connecting with people. I'm reading a comment here by Dana. For the last 3 days, I've been on my own head, stressing about how I would be able to be there for my kids today for their camp shows and disappointing them. People do not understand these things. I totally agree. People do not understand these things. So I have 3 children of my own. I have 2 stepchildren. My children have never known me not sick, never. Their experience of me when they were young children, they're now all college age, is of me being in bed in agonizing pain, of dark rooms, of no sound, me not being able to go to their events, me canceling things, me going to the emergency room and them seeing that things that really young children should really not see, and all the fears and the questions that young children have. So there's a lot of guilt and shame. There's a lot of feeling that you're a burden to people and you're disappointing people. It took me a really, really long time to figure out what to do about that. It's still a work in process. So all I can tell you is that, especially for the years that I was a single mother, is that I got my children involved. I talked to them about what was going on, and I got them involved to the extent that young children could be. For example, they actually learned to cook for themselves or for the whole family, learned to clean, to do their own laundry. One of them knew where my medication bag was and would bring my medication bag to me when I couldn't even get out of bed. They would bring water to me. So I got them involved. Now, 2 of them also have migraine, and 1 of them has other chronic pain syndromes. So there's a certain level of understanding there, but it doesn't change my shame and my guilt and my feeling of being a burden to them. Now they're older, I'm very, very honest. They know when they come to visit, I may not be well. They may end up cooking. They may have to bring me food in bed. I may just cancel appointments, which I do all the time. But I tend to focus on the things that I can do. So I know that I'm great at helping them with paperwork, with financial aid for college. I can do that. I can't always be there for them. I can't go to their events, but I can help them problem solve. I can be there and talk them through things. And that's really important for all of you to kind of focus on the things that you can do rather than the things you can't do. And it's not fair. It's not, and people don't understand, but there is always something that you can do, and just the fact that your children know that you love them is huge. Just your children knowing that you love them. So hug them when you can and tell them that you love them. So I'm going to come to an end of this. I know there's a lot more comments. I'm going to try to go back into the comments afterwards and answer some of them. Again, I hope this has been helpful to you. We're actually going to do the second one early. We're going to do it at the end of this month, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all there. We're going to talk specifically about comorbid conditions. So that's comorbid conditions that come along with migraine and with cluster headaches and other headache disorders. There's a wide range of them, as we mentioned beforehand. I know a lot of you live with them, so we're going to talk about that in detail. So come with your questions, come with your thumbs up, and let me know what you think about Out from the Shadows, Let's Talk Migraine. I hope you all have a great day. I'm wishing you a peaceful weekend. I suggest that you are kind to yourselves, that you get the rest that you can, and if you're well enough, build memories that you can treasure and that you can hold on to in those times that are really, really difficult and dark. So take care and have a great day.